Today we're going to talk about patient engagement. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, it's great to be here this morning. I'm really honored to be part of this group and be able to share with you this morning. Today we're going to talk about patient acquisition and engagement. And this is where it really all starts. And so I'm going to share some ideas with you this morning. I think some of them are going to really make you think and reflect about some of the procedures that you're using in your office. And hopefully we can make even some subtle changes to start increasing the quality of our patients and increasing the engagement, the overall engagement, and therefore the lifetime retention of all those patients as well. So it really starts with patient acquisition. So if you look back in history, I got into chiropractic in 1989. That's when I started school. And at that time, of course, there's no internet. And, so to get known in the community, you had to be socially engaged. So, how would chiropractors get out and get known? Well, they'd be involved in clubs, they'd be a member of the church, they'd get involved in Rotary or Business Networking International, or they'd be Masons. B.J. Palmer was a Mason and a Shriner. You go out and do talks at churches or companies, different ideas of where to go and speak. You could do lunch and learns, or you could do dinners. This was very popular back in the mid 1900s and later 1900s. I remember Sigafus having barbecues at his house of 600 people. He would feed the hungry and he would teach them about chiropractic, and he would literally bring them up and do a toggle adjustment on 600 people that came to his barbecue. He'd have barbecue chicken, and that's how he built his practice. And so, but now things are very different. So now really there's three ways that we acquire patients in our office. So let's go through this. And as I said, I think this will be really eye-opening for you. So first of all is referrals. And obviously, it would be awesome to build a practice on referrals. But here's the big issue, is that referrals, people refer people like them. So here's the thing, is that it really all starts with your mission. So what is your mission statement? And your mission statement defines who you are not, and who you're willing to attract. So it really defines that patient avatar for you. So if you can define your mission statement, have that very, very public, very popular amongst your team, so that everybody understands and agrees to that mission statement, then you can truly define the type of patient that you're willing to care for in your office. And the more grounded and foundational you can be with that mission statement, the more people in that realm you're going to attract. So here's the big thing, is that when you define that, you start to attract those types of people. If you haven't defined that, and this is the big thing, what happens is you start accepting people that don't fall into that perfect patient avatar. You start accepting them on their terms and not your terms. So if you're a corrective care chiropractor, you start accepting pay-as-you-go type of patients. Well, it's incongruent. It doesn't make sense that if you have a corrective care plan and your goal is to see spinal changes over time, why would you accept somebody on a pay-per-show type of basis? It doesn't make sense. So we need to make sure that we truly define who we are, who we're not, and who we're willing to fit into that perfect patient avatar. So that's number one. Number two, people come in because they're warm leads. They know you. So they met you at the golf course. They know you from church, or they know you from a different club. They're socially familiar with you in some way. So maybe they saw you speak. They saw you speak at some sort of a talk or a lunch and learn at their company. So they have a general idea of what you stand for. Dinners are a great way to do this. So if you don't do community appreciation dinners, that's a great way to attract people in, feed them, and then share your message. Share a message of healing and chiropractic. People get to know your heart, they get to know what you stand for, and that resonates. So you create a warm lead, and warm leads then want to come into your office, and they know what to expect on some level. The other way is advertise. When you talk about advertising, Google ads are specifically targeted at people who are looking for chiropractors. So here's the big thing, is that your online presence is so vital. So this is where you need to start looking at things, because the world is now online. So you need to look at your website. Is your website recent? Is it updated? Is it, do you have staff members that haven't been there for a year and a half? Do you have old articles on there? Is it just more of an encyclopedia rather than a call to action type of site? So updating your website is really, really vital because that is a reflection of you and your brand. So number one, your social media pages, they're really important because again, that shows what your office is all about. So having somebody delegated to keep those up to date is again really important because it warms up those people. So somebody who comes in from Google Ads, even though it's a very, very small percent of the population, if they find you, or if they're looking for a chiropractor and they happen to find you, they're ready to buy. They're ready to start. So they come in ready. But the third patient acquisition is cold leads. And that's what, most of us are doing some sort of form of Facebook or Instagram type of advertising. Maybe it's TikTok or even YouTube ads, whatever that is, but you're advertising to a cold audience. So think about this. This is, again, really important. They're not looking for you. You have to be cognizant of the fact that they're not looking for you. So being able to have a system to warm those people up and give them an idea of what to expect, what it is you truly stand for and what you deliver, and to set the bar so that you weed out people who are not willing to fall into that category saves you an incredible amount of frustration by being able to really truly identify and hone in on your perfect patient avatar. So again, that's really important because it creates, what you do is you start to create an element of trust. So again, here's something that's really interesting. So there's a fellow named Robin Dunbar who studied interactions with people and the ability to build trust. And he has what's called the 7-11-4 rule. So Robin Dunbar says that for a client to be fully engaged and understand, have a good level of trust of what you're delivering and want to buy from a sales perspective, has to spend 7 hours with you on average. So 7 hours. So the 7-11 rule says 7 hours or 11 touch points, has to maybe see you or come into contact with you on 11 different occasions. And the 4 is on 4 different platforms. So let's just say they see you on YouTube, or let's just say they see you on Facebook, or they see your website, or maybe they've seen you at a talk or whatever that is. On average, people need that number of interactions and that much time to warm up and build some trust and rapport to say, this is something that I want. This person has a message that I'm willing to buy, that I'm willing to reach into my pocket and pay money for. So, so that's a really interesting thing. So having your online presence to a point where people have that opportunity to search you up and find you in different locations builds an element of trust. So you take those cold leads now and you start to warm them up. You start to build an online reputation. So this is one of the major things with patient engagement. So online presence is everything. Personal brand, building your personal brand is again really important. So identifying what you stand for and what you stand against is really important. That's your personal brand. And the big thing is really truly have an attitude about chiropractic. I mean, we have something great that the general public has a misconception about or they don't know about at all, and they really need to start understanding what we know. So here's some of the dynamics of cold lead engagement. And I think this will be really revealing because a lot of us are doing some sort of advertising and expecting a result, but not getting that result. And this is some of the reason, or these are some of the reasons why. So, cold advertising in the form of the fact that if we hire a marketing agency, or some of us are doing it ourselves or whatever, the general marketing agency, what the plan is that they take over your Facebook page, they run an ad. Usually the ad is very symptom based, and they're trying to gain some sort of a hook. They're trying to throw out a hook there so they gain some attention from that patient, get the patient interested to respond, and the patient exchanges their name, address, or their name, phone number, and email in exchange for something. Maybe it's to a low-cost budget appointment, whatever that is. So thinking about that, if you're trying to hook this person who's just happened to be scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through Facebook, and then the idea is that you'll get them interested enough to maybe send them a couple of automated messages, get them to book an appointment, and then actually get them to show up in your office. The comparison of that is like going out onto the street and meeting somebody for the first time and asking them to marry you. It's the same sort of thinking. So here's the thing is that we really need a process to warm those people up. So I want to throw out some ideas here for you that's really going to help engage those people on a higher level. So Typically when we put an offer on an advertisement, it's usually a low cost, low budget offer. It's very pain based. And so here's the thing is that realize that every chiropractor in your community is doing some form of advertising. It's odd that they're not. And if you're not doing it, it's an avenue that I suggest you look into if you do it properly. But it really becomes a competitive thing where, well, this person over here is doing ads for $47 for the first visit. This person here is doing 37 and adding the first adjustment. Maybe I need to do 27. Oh, there's somebody doing 21. There's somebody doing 19. It's a race to the bottom. And the problem is it destroys the profession because people see you as a commodity. They have no idea what you do. They have no idea the specialty that you have in correcting spines. They have no idea about the education that you have. They just compare you to everybody else and assume that every other chiropractor is doing exactly the same thing. So it's a race to the bottom. And typically what it does is it attracts people who want to come in one time, they don't want to pay anything or next to nothing, and they don't want to stay for any long-term type of care. They just want to get their adjustment and leave. So if that's the type of practice you want to build, that's a great way to do that. But what happens is that then we try to take them through our process inside the office, our day 1 or day 2 or day 3, our doctor's report or report of findings, and we expect them to sign on for some long-term care plan for a few $1,000s. The patient views it as almost a bait and switch. So it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So that's why we really have to start understanding the whole dynamics of the psychology of warming up those patients to engage them in what we're doing. So here's what we used to do at the office. This was actually really, really cool, is that we all started with mission, and we agreed that those people that are responding to those ads on your Facebook or Instagram, they're sick and dying. We all our team, 100% of us, we all agree they're sick and dying. They don't even know it. So this is a big problem. So our goal was to virtually reach out and throw them a life preserver. So we appointed one staff member who was on fire for this. She said, I will do everything in my power to get those people, to talk to them, to create a relationship, to nurture them, to get them into the office. And so Diana was her name. And this is what she would do, is that leads, when the lead came in from the ad, it would send a message right to her phone. And she had a goal of calling that lead within 30 minutes. If she was busy with a new patient or busy at day 2, we were in the office, whatever the case is, she would get the notification. She would call as soon as possible, but the goal was within 30 minutes. In most cases, it was 5 or 10 minutes. So she would call them when they're still warm, when they're still thinking about it. She would do the double call. If she called the first time, because people see an unknown number, they screen it, they don't answer it, she would call right back without leaving a voicemail. And then the second time, they'd usually answer it. If she left a voicemail the second time, she would say, hey, this is Diana. I saw you just responded to our ad. Clearly, you're having some problems. I need to talk to you right away. This could be serious, and we want to make sure we do everything we can to get you the care that you need. I'm going to call you, and this is what she did. I'm going to call you back at 1 p.m. I'm going to call from this number. So if you see this number show up on your phone, please answer it. And I will talk to you, find out what's going on, and see if you're a good fit to come into the office. She'd call again at 1 o'clock. She'd do the exact same thing if she got a voicemail. I'm going to call at 5 o'clock. And if she got another voicemail, she literally, and listen to this, she literally took that list home every day, and she would call between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. at night, because she was so committed to saving and transforming lives. And that's when she got in touch with most of those leads. So we were just absolute ninjas at getting in touch with all of our leads from Facebook or from Instagram advertising and getting them in the office. So she created rapport right off the bat. The goal was 12 calls in the first 4 days. So the first day, they would get up to 5 phone calls. Some of you may think that's extreme, but here's the thing. And I remember her husband coming in when we first started doing this, and she was taking the list home, and he actually said he was coming in to get adjusted. And he said to me, he goes, yeah, Diana was up last night making some phone calls till after 10 o'clock. And I said, wow, she's just so, and she's so committed to that. And he goes, and I thought he was going to give me crap. I thought I was getting in trouble because I was making her do that. And he goes, I am so proud of her. And he literally responded our mission and replied our mission statement to us. He goes, people are sick and dying. And he goes, they need help. He goes, he goes, she's so committed to throw them a virtual life preserver. And that's exactly what we talked about in the office. And I was so proud. I just thought that was so cool. So be committed. Have the attitude that you are transforming and saving lives. Those people need help. And when you change your mindset, things around you start to change and you start to get better results. So here's some other strategies that work when it comes to warming up those leads that come in from cold lead acquisition. So the first of all is that, so let's just say hypothetically now, instead of running an ad that is pain based or that provides some sort of a low cost first visit offer, maybe you run an ad that says, learn how to get to the root cause of all of your health symptoms. And there's no fee, there's no nothing, just click here. And they submit their information. And now it takes them through a series of steps. So maybe they get an automated message with a link to a video of you explaining about how bad medications are, the side effects of these medications, and how chiropractic gets to the root cause of the problem. And they watch that little video, and then it invites them to either book a call with you or it invites them to book an appointment. So maybe they book a call with you, and then you can actually, so instead of them booking an appointment, they actually book a call, and you set up time in the week to field those phone calls. And it's just a short phone call for that person to apply to become a patient in your office. And so right there, you're building an element of trust, you're building some rapport, and immediately that person starts to feel warmed up to understand, now I understand why I'm going into the chiropractor. It's not for a quick fix, it's not for a quick crack, it's not for pain relief. I'm going in to get to the root cause of my problem. I'm going in to get my subluxation corrected. I'm going in to get my power turned on. And that's all part of the nurture process. So the other thing that they could do is you could send them, run a small little ad on Facebook that says, get to the root cause, or learn how medications or learn the side effects of different medications, and click, boom, and it sends them to a webinar. And you send them a recorded webinar of you talking about heart disease or talking about the side effect of different medications and how there's nerves in the neck and nerves in the upper spine that go to the heart. And when those nerves are compromised because of subluxation, that can lead to blood pressure and heart irregularities and so on. And then invites them to make an appointment to come into the office, or again, book a call with you. Maybe you send them a questionnaire with intentional questions about just health concerns or how you relate different forms of pain, like back pain, to maybe menstrual irregularities or gastric problems, or maybe if they have headaches, is there a relationship to high blood pressure or hormonal problems that could be triggered from the same nerves being irritated? And again, so now you're educating these cold leads before they come into the office. So if you want some help with those strategies, and if you're interested in more, just send me a DM. I'm happy to get on the phone and just give you some tips and give you some ideas on what you can put into your marketing strategies to create better patient acquisition and better patient engagement. So then the next thing is that in the office, how do we engage those patients when they're now actually in the office? So we were just absolutely set on having events. And I said, I wanted to have an event at least once a month, if not more. So we had our calendar set out well in advance. It was at least 6 months to a year in advance, where we would know exactly what events we were having. We had a regular nutrition talk. We were constantly having dinners. It was patient appreciation dinners or community appreciation dinners, to the point where we would invite, 250, 300, 350 people was our biggest dinner. And that was just our way of giving back to the community. But it was, again, creating that personal brand. And this was one of the fun things that we would do, is we really tried to we had a shock factor. And I love doing this. It was the shock factor in the office. So here's some ideas on how you can engage people in your practice. We did a talk on heart disease, and this was one of our regular talks. So I would love talking about heart disease because I was always relating it to the relationship of the spine and the nervous system and how the heart functions. And your heart can't function properly if you're subluxated. Even if you're athletic, if you're exercising with subluxations, that is dangerous. You need to get the subluxations corrected. If you're taking heart medication, we would go through the different side effects of heart medication, especially cholesterol medication. I remember talking to people about when I was young and when I was a student. I remember in university there was a physiology professor that talked about blood pressure and he said the way to determine blood pressure is 100 plus your age. That's the systolic blood pressure. He said if your systolic blood pressure is 100 plus your age, that's perfectly normal. And I remember this specifically as he said, as you age, you need to have your blood pressure increase. You need, because what happens is, and at this time, this is back in the mid 80s, he would say the biggest cause of death in seniors would be them falling and breaking a hip and becoming immobile and hospitalized. That is causing all kinds of death in seniors. And he said that results from their blood pressure being too low. They get dizzy and they can't function. So it's really, really important for you to make sure that your blood pressure is 100 plus your age. Well, so then what happens is big pharma comes along and they start paying scientists for studies to get the results that they desire, millions of dollars to get studies to back up the fact that no, we need to bring blood pressure down. And I remember when I first started in practice, oh, now blood pressure has to be 140 over 90. And if it's more than 140 over 90, you need medication. So that the medications of the heart medications, blood pressure, beta blockers, cholesterol medication go through the roof. They're billion-dollar industries. And now they're actually saying that if your blood pressure is more than 120 over 80, you're in trouble. Well, this is one of the leading causes of dementia and senior problems, is that we're destroying the growth and the life and the progression as we age because we're chemically altering this blood pressure. So we would have these talks in our office, and we would actually so we would go out and get a cow's heart. We would go to the butcher and buy a cow's heart, have it vacuum packed. And if you've ever seen a cow's heart, it is the size of a rugby ball. It is huge. And we would actually suspend it from the ceiling in our office. So people would have to walk around it to get to the adjusting tables. And they would go, what is that? That's so gross. And the cow's heart, it's covered in fat. It looked absolutely gross. And I would say to people, hey, if you don't want your heart to look like that, you better come to the community appreciation dinner. We're talking about heart disease. Who can you think of that needs to come with you? And that's one of the things that grew our dinner. So that was it was the shock factor of doing things like that in the office that created conversation and created engagement. And I know darn well that those people would then go home and tell their family or they had a cow's heart hanging in their office. They would tell their friends, hey, you should come to this heart disease dinner. And it worked fantastic. Another thing that we would do is we would actually draw a chalk outline of somebody, like a dead body, on the floor. And what would happen is that I would draw it really contorted. And if you have carpet, you'd do it with masking tape. But you'd have a dead body on the floor, so people would have to walk over this dead body outline on the floor. But what I would purposely do is outline the spine very, very crooked. So you could clearly see that the spine was very distorted. It was a scoliotic spine. And then we would take, because we had this bin of medications, when people came in, they brought their empty bottles of medications, say, hey, I'm healthy, I don't need my medications anymore. They would bring their pill bottles in. Some of them were full, we'd have to go and empty them, but they would bring them in. So we kept this huge container of empty pill bottles where people would bring them in, and we had it on display in the office. So again, that's a great idea to engage people. But what I would do is I would take half a dozen or 10 of those pill bottles, and I would put it on the chalk outline of the dead body. And we just leave it there. And so people are coming in, getting adjusted, and they go, well, what is that? What is that thing on the floor? And so that gave us the opportunity to say, hey, the biggest killer in this world are two things, medication and subluxation. Well, what does that mean? What is that? So that opened up the door for us to say subluxation and medication are the two biggest killers on the face of the planet. Because why? Well, they both disconnect the physical body from the spiritual body. They disconnect God's will for your life from your physical being, because the nervous system is the interface between your life and spirit and your physical body. And if you're subluxated, it's disconnected. You can't become the person that God wants you to be. You can't reach your full potential. If you're on medications, it's chemically altering your innate. Your innate cannot function the way it wants to function because you're chemically altering all of the different neurotransmitters and hormones in your body to create some sort of a desired effect. Your body can't function the way that it's created to function. So those two things disconnect you from your innate, subluxation and medication, and people got it. They understood it. And all of a sudden you shock them into the understanding. It creates a different paradigm, a different perspective, And that's what builds your practice. That's what builds your brand. That's what defines you, because now you've clearly delineated what you stand for and what you stand against. And when you can clearly delineate these things, you grow this brand huge, and people want to be around you. They want to bring their friends, they want to bring their family. Here's another thing that we did is when it came to the scoliosis thing on the whiteboard, we had a whiteboard at each table, and I would often just put up different thoughts or different things that made people ask questions or made them think. And there was one time I drew a little stick figure of a little girl. It was clearly a little girl, put a little dress on with a little pony, little pigtails. And I put a caption beside it and said, "My parents never took me to the chiropractor." And she had a big S-shaped spine. Like, it was a shock factor picture. And and I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be completely offensive. And sure enough, the first day it was up, I had Audrey comes in, and she's a patient, and she's been coming in for a long time, very regularly. And so normally people are lying down. And in fact, I had this thing where if people weren't lying down, I would say, "Hey, go ahead and lie down. I'll go adjust the next person. I'll be back." But she actually stopped me and she said, "I'm not lying down today." I said, "Why? What's going on?" She goes, "That picture offends me." I said, "Well, why?" She said, "Because my son is 17 years old." And she said, his medical doctor told him that if he's got a scoliosis in his spine, and if his spine gets any worse, he's going to have surgery. And I said, "Well, how does that make you feel?" She goes, "I'm so sad for him." And I said, "So why isn't he here?" And she looked at me like the deer in the headlights. She said, "Well, I've never really thought about it." I said, let's make an appointment, get him in." And so it was the shock factor that made her think differently enough to say, and so sure enough, the next day, Harrison's in for his new patient appointment, became a great patient, and came in for the next 2-3 years regularly to get his subluxations corrected. So it's painting that picture for your patients that people start to see you differently. They see the world differently through your eyes. So start pushing the limit. Start being somebody who is very different than the chiropractor down the street. Start doing things that are going to create a brand for you. Don't be afraid to shock your patients. Don't be afraid to do something over the edge just to create conversation hey, listen, not everybody's going to like it, but that's okay. That's still creating a brand for you. So I hope this helps you guys. I hope that you've got something out of this talk today. I hope that you can go back to your office, make some changes, start defining who you want to see. Because remember, all of the quote unquote bad patients, all of the low quality patients that are in your office that frustrate you, that frustrate your team, you have attracted them. So let's do what we need to do to create the systems and create the presence in our office, create the vibration and the energy in our office to start attracting the people who fill you up and who grow the profession in the way you want to see it grow. Love you guys. Have an awesome day.